All right. Hello, everybody, to our webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about how to optimize your location-based digital funnels. So you have me, Azur, product manager here at Netsertive, and joining me, or I'm joining him, is Jason.
Hello, everyone. I'm a go-to-market advisor and head of marketing here at Netsertive, and we are excited to dive in and really have a workshop style approach to give you a lot of tactical and practical ideas around optimizing your location-based digital funnels.
That's going to be fun. Funnels, fun, get it? No, it's too cheesy. So a little background on Netsertive and who we are. I'm sure a lot of you know. So we live and breathe the digital marketing space, especially in franchising. We've been doing this for over a decade now. A lot of experience in multi-location, automotive, um, playing in a lot of different verticals in this space. We've been a Google partner, an Amazon partner, yada, yada, for many, many years now. And we really try to stay current and up to date with all the things that are happening in this space and the technology. And yeah, we're really excited to continue that sort of education by talking through this today. Um, so our agenda. So we're going to be talking about where are those pesky leaks in your local digital funnels? Where are your leads falling out? Maybe just a little bit, and then over as you go down, whoa, where did all your leads go? And some of those bigger leaks as well. I'm talking about how we can plug them through a variety of techniques. So we're talking about how to really find your right market. This is something we find that a lot of people miss. They sort of just target everybody, but it's really important to target your market very, very effectively and then also gain insights through both qualitative and quantitative mechanisms. And I'm really, really excited to talk about those things because I think there's just so many little nuggets of wisdom there that we have based on our many years of experience that I'm really looking forward to sharing. And then at the end there, we'll go to Q&A and talk through some of the questions that have come in before. And then, of course, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to shoot them in and we'll tackle them for you.
Yep, and I was going to say definitely we're recording this, so we'll share the deck and the recording. And like Oscar said, if you have any questions at all, definitely go ahead and fire away. You should see the Q&A window to be able to send those over. And we want to jump in here with talking about where are the leaks in your local digital funnels. So this webinar is really focused on the problems that multi-location marketers and franchise marketers face, where they are marketing from the home office with influence, but what happens at the edge, what happens in their networks is can be very different from network to network. Depending on the strategy that you have set up, you might be feeling some of these problems, like how can I get franchisees to invest more in digital marketing? If digital is a great lever for you to deploy, but your franchisees push back and they don't see the value and it's not working, that's you're stuck. And we talk to a lot of people that are in this scenario where they're torn. They're thinking, should we bring it in house? Should we build it ourselves? Should we partner? I don't have visibility into my franchisees' marketing activity. I have to drive performance across the entire network of locations. I'm responsible for multiple brands, and it just ends up being, when you do the math, that you have each location, and each location has 10 digital accounts times 100, and the problem just gets overwhelming. So how do you drive performance at the edge when you're actually just dealing with so much? By the time you list everything you have to do, you have to, go get a snack.
Yeah, then these are all, I will say, like, these are all real things that we've heard from a lot of people we've worked with, a lot of people we've talked to, and really excited to help you find a way to not to have those snacks, but in a way that you enjoy it, not that you're eating it because you're stressed. It's good to have snacks. I love having snacks during my day,
Stressing.
but it's not when you're stress eating, you're like more chocolate, more chocolate, more chocolate. The idea here is to get you a calm place. You have one chocolate, you enjoy it, you savor the bites. I think you get what I'm saying. So yeah, really
Rewarding
excited to talk
for
through those things.
rewarding yourself for a job well done instead of I just took another call for an angry franchisee.
Yeah.
Um, And this kind of illustrates what I was saying, where if you think about the local customer journey, right, and we're talking about optimizing, there are a lot of different places to potentially optimize and make changes, right? From awareness through purchase and loyalty. You know that consumers are doing a ton of research, especially if it's a high consideration purchase. They are checking you out, they're searching, they're coming back to your website multiple times before they will ever even call you, oftentimes, depending on your business. And so you really need to figure out how can you build those trust signals around each location so that no matter what the entry point is to your local digital funnel, you are intentionally providing the experience that you want to provide.
Yeah,
Um, Go ahead.
so I just wanted to say one of the things we see here a lot is just like having that brand consistency throughout this journey because you can have a phenomenal email, just best email in the world, totally on brand. But if they're clicking through and then going to a website that does not match at all, if one of them is like fuchsia pink and the other one is like dark metalcore, because consumers are going to be confused. So it's really important to have this really good brand consistency through each of these things. And for sure, optimizing, updating, but to start, you need to have those foundations down. And we see that come up a lot when we talk to people as well. Is just get the foundations. Once you have them, they're consistent for each of those locations, each of those cases. Then we really get to work on optimizing and driving these leads home.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to talk about a digital funnel optimization framework, right? And this is might sound straightforward or simple when you look at this, but it's one of those things where how many marketers are actually allowing themselves the luxury, so to say, to set aside time to intentionally improve, right? To intentionally look at how they can optimize their business. And especially when you're dealing with locations where you have location stakeholders, it needs to be extremely clear to all the location stakeholders what the plan is, what you're doing from a strategy standpoint, why you want to do something. Because I said so is not an acceptable answer to the franchisees. So you can really involve your full network in this idea of, hey, we're all getting better together. We're all learning together. So starting with defining objectives, where are your biggest pain points? Developing hypotheses, designing experiments, implementing testing, capture and share insights, right? And then you're going to learn something, even if what you learn is that we saw no difference and we got no results, right? That is a learning. So what can you do to redefine, to change something up? And this enters a cycle of continuous improvement. And I think when you are able to go on the offense with optimization, it prevents you from going on the defense when performance isn't where you want it to be or where franchisees want to be. Because everyone is in a mindset not of every single thing is going to win constantly. It's that we are optimizing and getting better and sharing learnings. So if something is a failure, it becomes a point of learning versus this vendor messed something up again, right? So it's, well, how can we better set expectations? Everything is just going to be set in a context of growth and development, right? And that includes the what's going to work in your franchise communication and the way that you're going about communicating your optimizations.
Yeah,
Um,
and that I just want to add on there because I think something Jason you said there, it's so, so important that if you do a test and you find that, hey, this variation was like 2% less performance, that is not a bad thing. That is like great, great learning. So that when if something big happens, there's some big market changes, you've already tested that, you already know, hey, this thing doesn't work. Let's try this other thing. And maybe that next thing will give you a 20% improvement. So keep on testing, keep on iterating, and don't view it as a failure. There's like positive outcomes, negative outcomes, but they're all learning, having you have learnings and grow across your network. So I think that was a really good point.
yeah, and the
That's
other thing
tough stuff.
is when you're managing all of these metrics and you have your finger on the pulse, then you can start seeing when something is not an incremental change. If all of a
Right.
sudden you have this 20% shift in something, you can dig into it further and you can see, oh wow, well there was a, this business closed, or there's a big construction project that's blocking it's blocking in the whole shopping center where this location is, and their sales are dropping, right? So it's like, why did the conversion to revenue drop? There's all these things like that that are on the ground that are more on the qualitative side, which I was going to talk about as well. So what are the things that you can test? Um, on the right here is really what Netsertive is all about, why we were founded, which is that localization increases performance. So the more you can localize your campaigns across every touch point, the better the performance will be. And there's this quick hit of success when you just are putting the location and the geo terms, but then we see a massive lift in success when there's that authentic localization. So franchise, like real franchisees on your franchise location pages, and trust signals all over the place, and your pages are optimized so that when someone searches on their phone, the Google business profile is popping up right away and the reviews are great. It's like all of that takes this hyper local approach to improving performance. So we've seen a lot of success testing things like audience targeting, which we'll talk about in much more detail, seasonality, bid strategies, right? So how are you or your agency setting up the campaigns to bid? What are you guiding Google's AI to do as it's watching your people who are interested in your business? The conversion type and source to revenue. So looking at where a lead's coming from and how quickly those convert. I'm sure a lot of you are doing a version of that now. Self-reported attribution, asking where did you hear about us? Website headlines, right? So getting a split testing software and just, hey, we know that everybody's seeing the website header for the location page where the ads are landing. Let's cycle through that and see if we get a performance lift on one of the headlines. um, Offers, that's a huge need for local marketing. And we often see companies don't have a strong offer. So going through a rapid iteration of offer testing is a great place to start. If you don't want to optimize top of the funnel, you're already getting traffic. Let's see how to convert more traffic quickly. And then the content localization, something like a new location finder. People often will sleep on the location finder on your website thinking it doesn't really matter, but that can be one of the biggest points of fall off on a local website. I know Ozzer is very passionate about location finders.
I am, because it's possible to make them so pretty, and so many times people don't. And I think there's, like you said, there's just so much you can do there. And I think the data around them is really interesting too, because, a lot of times we look at websites and like, okay, what do we want the user to do? Oh, they only spent 2 seconds, they only spent 10 seconds on this page. But you have to really understand what the point of the page is. The point of a location finder is to get the user to the next page, right? And so when you're looking at these things, you really have to be very strategic. And or what does location finder do? It does that one thing. So you better make sure it does it really, really well. And I think those are nice things, because you don't have to think about potentially like these 50 million other things. You just have to do this one thing. And I
Mhm.
think location finders can be really good for that
Yeah,
purpose.
absolutely. As well as 80/20 things like the header of the website or location finder, you can look at where traffic is bouncing, and you'll find, okay, let's focus there where we really need more traffic to convert. So your landing pages, your location finder, your headers,
Yeah.
and
And one other thing, Jason, I just wanted to call out here. So this headline really stood out to you. What can you test? And the answer in 2024 in the digital world is essentially everything, right? There's a tool for it, there's an AI for it. You can test whatever the heck you want. And so it's not, and I think this happens a lot. People talk about like data. It's almost similar. Like, what data can you collect? You can collect all the data. You can have big data for like every time you lift your finger, right? And I think testing can be somewhat similar. You can test every single word in a sentence across your entire site, across all your campaigns, to hyperbolize a bit. The key thing here, and with everything that we know as marketers, is to be strategic. As Jason was talking about in the last slide, having an actual plan, sitting down, thinking, okay, what are our KPIs? What affects these KPIs? Which levers can we move to affect these KPIs? What difference did it make? What should I do differently next time? So it's not just about, whoa, there's so many things to test. I have my CRM, I can do this, I can do that. It's about really sitting down, thinking about what you're doing, and building a strategy that'll work for the long term.
Yeah, I love that. And this is just, again, right, we want to be really tactical and give you all tools and things to use and ways to think about, am I doing this right? Is this happening? So if we're thinking about sample optimization cadence, right, you could say, okay, if there's a new account, new channel that is open up, how often are you reviewing it? So you can say, I want to see something on days 1, 3, 7, 14, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, right? And if you set that expectation for the team, they know that they need to be checking in with you on that. And then you're not going to be wondering either, because you know that you've set that expectation. So you'll just have it be something that's expected, and it'll be, free your mind from thinking of it. Making sure that there's alerting systems to identify red flags for investigation. Having location roll-up reporting performance reviews. So having a dashboard where your key stakeholders can see performance trends across locations and, again, see what's happening, right? Because maybe one of the franchisees, it's set up where their credit card's in Google or something, and the credit card expired and nobody caught it. And then they're not getting any leads and nobody noticed, right? That's the kind of stuff that happens all the time. And it's just making sure that there's a cadence in place to monitor what's going on. And then having a monthly strategic reviews, having really these reviews so that we can make sure that, or so you can make sure that the performance is aligning with business goals for each location, right? And if those reviews are happening with you as a whole or with location stakeholders, right, the franchisees or location stakeholders are able to feel the results of the digital marketing, right, and how it's affecting traffic or calls or leads and business. So it's really making sure ultimately that that gut check is there to say, is this aligning with your business goals? Well, oftentimes where we talk about going hyper local, there will be a network that's doing nationwide promotions for things, and the offer resonates really well in certain regions, but not in others, right? So you need to have, like, maybe Florida doesn't have basement mold problems, right? They have different kinds of mold problems. So basement mold creative, it should not be run in Florida, but that's the kind of stuff that happens all the time. Um, and then you can look to tech to really analyze these changes in bid performance. I know everyone's obsessed now with the latest platforms and AI, and how are we using data and machine learning and all these things to figure out how to do this better. um, Platforms they can analyze changes to bid strategies, budget allocation across channels, ads, ad groups, ad formats, all these different things of optimization across your network. There are so many decisions around just a single campaign for a single location that you just need tech to analyze it in some way. So having that as part of your strategy is definitely a critical piece as well. So let's look at this unlock of targeting your market effectively, because this is really so important. This is the franchise marketing equivalent of better ingredients, better pizza. And sometimes we'll see marketers who are somewhat opportunistic, where they think they're being opportunistic by saying, hey, you never know, maybe this, maybe that. And then they end up going way too broad with their targeting. And it ends up diluting everything about the campaign, right? So the goal is to be as meaningfully specific as possible to your local target market and to your ideal customers, where each location wants to be spending the money. So there are so many different levers to pull around audiences, and it's a really great place to start when you want to look at how can we optimize, because If you optimize on the top of the funnel with your audience targeting, then it'll pull through that strategic decision. It'll pull through the entire funnel. So having custom audiences, right? So who's the ideal audience based on relevant keywords, URLs, apps? You can do targeting for people who have searched for certain terms or visited certain websites. You have affinity audiences. Affinity audiences are users that are based on what they're passionate about, their hobbies or habits and interests, right? So if someone's an in-market auto shopper, Google has an audience for that. And again, you've likely heard this and know this and maybe used some of these in the past, but when you're looking at optimizing, it's really going back through and making sure that all of these things are set up correctly. Um, we talked about in market, we talked about, and then remarketing. Right? This is ultimately where it gets to, which is if someone's interacted with your business, either, they've viewed one of your Facebook video ads or they've been to your website, especially with these high consideration purchases, the remarketing channel is where so much of the value can come in. So you want to have it set up to you're capturing them in the top of the funnel, and then you're able to keep serving them ads. And again, I'm sure many of you are already running remarketing in some way, but how intentional is it? And how much are you running certain campaigns for remarketing based on the initial engagement and how that might communicate intent about something? So, there's a lot to nerd out here if you're into if you're into local digital
Always.
marketing. Um, so this is just an example of how it comes together, right? With targeting. So let's say you have Spark Home Services, a local franchise brand. They want to do they're expanding rapidly. Franchisees want more control and return on digital budgets. They want to drive leads and revenue at the franchise level. And it's really how can we use those audiences so that different touch points come in at the right time? And this is only for paid as well, right? So you can have highly localized search ads, for example, where you are hyper localizing the ad, any images that you're including with ads, the everything should be based on that location and the offers and their business priorities for what they want to do, get more business. Um, and then you have retargeting for social, video, display ads, where you can take the Spark Home Services Raleigh, get your home ready for spring. So we often see networks that are operationally limited by something like creative constraints. And there's someone whose whole job is to make banner ads because that's how they're set up. That's how they decided to set up their network. And they're just cranking out banner ads, trying to make all these local versions of banner ads because what ends up happening though is that it gets very limited in what you can actually advertise for. So there's no ability to create a truly local display ad for a location because it's backed up operationally and creative, and it's going to take weeks to make a change. So that's an example of thinking through your ad creative operations even and thinking, is there a different way to do this? How can we enable hyper local personalization and just rethink this completely, because the way it's currently happening is limiting success because we can't target the local market with the right creative. But I digress. And then remarketing lists for search ads, where if someone has actually searched before for your, a term, or they've been on your website and you're remarketing them, then you can be paying more to get the click again because someone's searching for, your offer again. So a lot of these things are basics, but they're also very complicated when you scale them across 100 locations. So that's where you have to figure out how to keep it simple. Um, and then in-market display ads, which we'll talk about in a case study, and seeing, okay, once we know someone is definitely in market, how could we crank up the offer and get the most out of conversions there? So Ozzer is going to talk about qualitative insights.
I am. So first of all, I appreciate how excited you got there, Jason. It got me excited too, just
I'm
nerding
super
out, thinking
excited
about all
about
these. Yeah, there's so much to do. And so this is one of the things that I also get super excited about, which is qualitative insights. And again, I love data, I love programming, I love all things technology, but that doesn't mean that we should ignore qualitative insights. It doesn't mean we should ignore beauty and just humans, because at the end of the day, we're humans marketing to other humans, and I think that really comes out when we talk about qualitative insights. And so let's talk a little bit more about this. So what does that mean? First of all, it means essentially things without numbers, right? To be super clear. So don't ignore this data, please. There's a lot of tools around this, that can be used, listed a few out there too. But what is qualitative, mean in the digital space? So it means things like customer surveys. And so there's a million ways to do different customer surveys. You can use tools like SurveyMonkey, or you can do like a focus group online. You can do lots of different things. So just ask your customers things and actually do something with the answers. A lot of the time, I see these surveys go out where it's just 1 to 5, rate something. You collate all the information. You say, oh, we had 4.37 on average across all metrics. Last time we had 4.22. That's a 0.2% increase. Great, that's awesome. But what are people actually saying, right? Like people can give a lot of people can give you 5 stars and still have some really interesting feedback that can help you grow as a business. People can give you 1 star, people can give you 3 stars. It's really important to go through and actually read those things, understand them. I'm by no means saying you have to read all of them, if there's thousands of responses. Read 5 of them, read 10 of them, just get a feel of what this data is. Because I think you might be surprised how telling those insights can be. And design testing, so this is something like, you do a new version of a campaign ad, or you do a new version of the web page. You can use a tool like 5-second testing. What that does is you put up the ad or the website, and for 5 seconds, people would say, yes, I like it, no, I don't like it. And then they have like 1 sentence. Or you can do usertesting.com, and that tool essentially lets you put in your whole user experience. So you could say, I'm a user, sorry, you're a user, you're going to go to the site, you're going to look for this thing and try to convert. And these people will actually say out loud, usually it's 15-20 minutes. I did this is confusing to me. And those things are so, so valuable. Like I've looked at oodles and oodles, very technical oodles and oodles of data. And sometimes it's not clear. What does this mean? Bounce rate is up. Okay, why? Page speed is like why? But you just look at like one person's actual experience and you follow them through the journey, and it just clicks that, okay, I need to update this, or okay, this is not brand consistent. And so these qualitative tools can be super, super useful for getting those insights. Visual analytics there is referring to tools like Hotjar, Microsoft Clarity, Lucky Orange. Essentially, this will give you a scroll map of how far users are going down the page. It may also give you, or likely will also give you, a click map. And click maps are really interesting because they tell you where people are clicking, but they also tell you where people are rage clicking. So you'll see like people are like, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? And those are the kind of things you just don't get in a lot of quantitative data, because in the quantitative data, you'll just see 10 clicks on this page. Great. You might say, okay, cool. Like there's a lot of in this session, there's a lot of things in this navigation. They may have clicked here, but if you really look at it, it's like, okay, they clicked 8 times on one image and it would not load, and they're super, super pissed. And so those things are, again, they can be hard to hear or hard to see sometimes. I'm sure all of us have read some not so nice form submits where people are like, what the hell, what's going on? But it's good information, and don't ignore it just because it might make you feel bad, because those things can be really, really insightful. And then the last thing there is digital trends. These are things like industry publications. I put magazines. I don't know why. I don't feel like I'm that old that I would look at magazines. More likely, you're just gonna go on LinkedIn, or webinars like this one. Just understand what's going on in the space, to just have a broader understanding of the customer behavior. What kinds of things are working right now? What are the design trends? We went through sort of maximalism and then minimalism. Now we're sort of at essentialism. And again, those terms can be esoteric as well. And these things, you need to be in the space to understand those things. And I would super, super encourage you not to forget the human at the end of this picture. And yeah, we can talk through on the next slide sort of what that means specifically if you're, already running these campaigns. So form fills, again, very easy to look at quantitatively, especially when you have a huge network of like 100 locations, you're getting 50 leads a day. It's a big number, right? You're not going to read through all those. Most cases, you probably are just going to look at the overall number, look at those trends. Okay, are they trending up, trending down? However, take 10 minutes, read through some of these things and try to understand what's going on. You can even set up in some systems trigger words. So you can say, hey, did anyone use this word? Did anyone mention our competitor in these form submits? Why did they do that? Go through, look at that information, and it might be super helpful in understanding the bigger picture of what's going on. And sort of the caveat to this is also customer calls. This is probably, I would say, my favorite way of learning about the actual customer base. Often when we're called on to do things like, do a customer audit or just get started with a new campaign or with, or even an existing customer, but expanding their offering. One of the things I love to do is just listen to customer calls because there's just so much you can understand the tonality and the words that are being used. It tells you sort of the impression of your brand. It tells you some frustrations they may have, and this can be useful for both a corporate level and on a single location level because you can tell again potentially using things like competitor tracking by using specific words that are using sentiment analysis. Are different locations tracking differently? Is there specific training that needs to be done on this location? Maybe the franchisee isn't responding in a way that makes sense. There's so much good qualitative data here. And, I know we only have 10 more minutes, but I could go on forever, but please, 5 minutes, listen to some calls. You're going to learn a lot. It's going to be fun. Or maybe
Another thing,
not, but you learn a lot.
kind of a bridge to the between calls and quantitative is call rail or a call tracking solution like that where
Yeah.
um, we see auditing a lot of networks. They're not using something like call rail where they're able to see where phone calls are coming from and attach those conversions to campaigns or recordings, all these things. So really look at your calls as key lead sources from a both qualitative and quantitative standpoint. So I know quantitative insights are the second aspect of how we really want to think about optimization.
Yeah, and I think to your point, a lot of these things are, they go hand in hand. You can collate qualitative data even to get quantitative. You're going to be doing a lot of the same things in terms of that testing, looking at analytics to get this quantitative data. But it's super important to look at both things. So quantitative data is generally more what we're familiar with. So these will be things like on the website, analytics, your pages viewed, your sessions, your bounce rate, your engagement rate, all that good stuff. So making sure to look at that and again, trying to understand it as part of a bigger picture. Like, okay, this number is down 10%. Why? Don't just look at it and be like, okay, it's down 10% because of blah blah blah. Really try to think through strategically what that means, what that might, it might paint a bigger picture of what's going on there that you may not understand. That's super helpful when you're looking at comparative data, when you're seeing, okay, these different locations are tracking very, very differently in terms of performance. Was there a specific offer, as Jason mentioned earlier, that we were testing, and that offer led to people being a lot more engaged, much higher engagement rate, much higher form submission rate. How do these things come together to tell a story of what's going on, and how can we keep using this information to really keep optimizing, keep testing, so that we see this number grow bigger and bigger and we sort of learn things over time. And one of the other things I wanted to call out there is also tech performance. Not super sexy, things like, oh, what's my server response time? Doesn't sound super important, but those things like server response time informs things like your core web vitals, which informs things like SEO, which informs things like your overall presence in the space and your brand awareness. So, focus on each of these things in turn. And I've said it a million times, but how it comes as part of the bigger picture. So you can use tools like, again, Google Analytics, Paid Speed Insights, the data within your ads, your campaigns, your CRM data. Competitive intelligence is a big thing that I think is underused a lot. There's a lot more tools out there right now for example, SEMrush has their new trends suite, which lets you sort of see how your competitors are doing. And you can see that at a per location basis. So you can understand, hey, there's an opportunity here to grow, to really, capitalize on certain keywords. So look at all these data points together to get those insights.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. And talking more about, when we're optimizing, what are we optimizing towards? So as I mentioned earlier, being super strategic about those KPIs, which things really matter to us. And another thing I'm going to call out here is make sure that these KPIs are consistent throughout your sort of marketing organization. I've definitely seen cases where like sales has one KPI, marketing has another KPI, and then those things just do not mesh. If marketing is like, we have to increase lead volume to like the highest point possible, and if sales is like, okay, we have to reduce the amount of time spent on each lead, you're getting a ton of unqualified leads, and you're spending a lot of time on them. So making sure that you're, optimizing towards the right thing holistically, and that'll really, because at the end of the day, it's not just about marketing as a marketer saying we're doing a great job, salespeople saying, hey, we're doing a great job. It's about really improving the overall business and improving it at scale. And at scale often requires not just communication within the home office, but also communication with your franchisees to make sure that everyone's understanding the overall picture here. And, we're doing the things that we should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the big picture ultimately, if you can rally your whole organization around, we're going to optimize for loyalty, right? And that's like we're building long-term customers, or whatever it is for your organization, you can just align everything to that. And you can have those questions that people can ask themselves that can unlock decisions and help improve success in the moment. Like, what's the right thing if our North Star is loyalty? And then you can measure everything even according to that strategy. So quick study here. Please do enter any questions that you have. And want to talk about optimization in action. So how do things change? What does this look like when you jump in with an optimization program? So this is a real example of a multi-location brand that we worked with. That was a home services company. And at the start, you can see these different video, social, search, display. You can see how they're broken down by how we allocated budget. And this is a long consideration purchase. And at the start of working with this network, it was one franchise group running primarily search campaigns. And if you see how much budget is allocated to search there, and then it shrinks over time to really focus on display. So we noticed that the display campaigns were outperforming search in a few accounts, and the display cost per lead was so much lower across the board. So then, because we were able to monitor all of the different locations, we're able to look at trends across the locations, just like you should be able to for your network. And so we shifted budget from search to display campaigns in all accounts and saw a massive lift in both conversions and a reduction in the cost per lead. So that's the kind of story that you want to be hearing from your team or your partners in what are the learnings and how are we making changes based on those learnings, right? If your reporting meeting sounds like uh, same old, or if your dashboards don't mean anything to you, then that's a great sign that you should take a step back and rethink the quantitative metrics and how they're driving decisions. You want to take this one, Azur?
Yeah, so I definitely do. So as I mentioned, sort of throughout this idea of the bigger picture. So this is a visual representation of what that bigger picture looks like. So there's just so many pieces these days when it comes to marketing. It's not just a newspaper, you post an ad, everything is good, right? We know there's talking about marketing operations and just business in general, in 2020s, there are so many different technologies in place, so many different pieces of infrastructure with your, business intelligence, your CRM, your point of sale, your ERP, your product feed, all these different things that have to come together. And that's just the data. And then what you do with the data, the advertising, CTV, YouTube, social, what you're doing on the digital side. a lot of things going on. And as I mentioned sort of at the start of the presentation, really important to be hyper aware of what you're doing on these things, making sure that you're not siloed in your organization, as I mentioned, with sales and marketing doing different things, making sure that you have the same KPIs, making sure that you're consistent from a brand level, and specifically from a multi-location business, making sure that you have a very clear communication of goals, of content from that brand to franchisee level. And all those things are really the key pillars for localized marketing success. Having clear goals, clear communication, and not having those silos. And there's a lot more I could say around this, but I just wanted to shout that out, that there's just so much here, and we all know this, but it is possible to do it with the magic of technology and very smart people such as yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great map to start with, right? For mapping out success for your franchise digital.
Yeah.
I'm going to paste in the chat a link to this. So how you can get started on uh, your quantitative and qualitative journey is this localized data audit. It's really how can you use data to increase sales at the location level. So this is a assessment that follows the customer journey, and it gives you the assessment question, why it matters, and you can rate your effectiveness on something, give it a yes or no, and it can be a great place to start internally for having these conversations around what are we measuring, what does our program look like, and how are we going to optimize based on these principles. So if we look at, see, we don't have much time for Q&A, but I know we did have some pre-sent questions that people submitted with registration. So we'll just say, maybe just take this one, Azur. How can I use AI for optimization? It's a big question we get a lot these days.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a good question because AI is everywhere. Everyone feels like, you know, does AI make sense here? Does it not make sense here? Optimization in digital marketing is a place where it actually makes 1,000% sense. So, there's a couple different spheres here. So there's in terms of bidding and all the things that you can do there. Actually, Jason, do you mind speaking a little? I know you were talking about that a little bit earlier. Do you mind elaborating on the bidding side a little bit?
Yeah, especially with what Google is doing with smart bidding and with taking all the data it has on users based on the device they're on and where they are and the time of day and what audiences they're in. They're doing a lot to allow smart bidding to just drive success for performance, because you're not having to guess or understand the search volume of how many people are searching for this certain keyword or that, right? Like there's obviously still a ton of strategic planning that goes in, but a lot of the AI optimization is how is your digital partner or your team training the AI on what conversions are successful, right? So it's setting conversions and going through a process to um, maximize clicks, and then making sure that you're targeting the right audiences, again looping that back in so that those conversions are the ones you want. And then when you have a certain quantity of conversions, then you can switch the bidding to maximize conversions, right? So that's one play that you might be presented with, and it's a great one because it's using AI to optimize, and using the full data set that Google has behind the scenes to find your target market around each location. And your job is to make sure that the conversions are aligned to the business and that those leads are quality.
Yeah, and I'll just point out, I know we're over time. Another big thing to use AI is when we talk about, as I mentioned, there's so many things you can test. You can test everything. AI is a great use case. One, for going through those things and saying, okay, which of these makes sense for my business? And then two, for coming up with potential test scenarios. And three, sort of evaluating the data from the quantitative data from those scenarios to make sure, hey, what did this really mean? Is this something I can work on going forward? So there's just beyond the obvious ones, coming up with headlines, creating content, creating schema for your site. There's so much you can do with AI for optimization sort of across the digital sphere. And it's really awesome how many marketing man hours this can save. So I think we should all be happy for all the things that we can do with AI in this space.
No, absolutely. All right, well, since we're at time, I think we can say thank you so much to everyone who attended. We're happy to jump on a call after this and dive into your audit or answer any other questions. So definitely just reach out to info@netsertive.com. And I hope you all have a great day and a great quarter optimizing your digital funnels.